had like several $1,000 overdraft on the account. Just like, what the hell? I was about to pay rent. Where'd all my money go? And it turned out it was just some random person scribbled a bunch of stuff on some bank statement and just like cleared out the account. I even saw the picture of it. Did not resemble my name, my signature, anything. And it's just mind blowing that a bank will just give someone else your money if they just doodle on a piece of paper some random stuff. So I was on the phone with the bank for a few days, and then they said, "Oh, well, we have to close your account and reopen you a new one." And I just said, "Yeah, well, let me hold off on the reopening a new one." So I just got whatever else I had, paid rent out of that, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm going back. I think that's it. I'm done with banks.
All right, welcome back to Bitcoin is Hard, a Choice App production about Bitcoin and personal finance. Today, I'm super pumped to talk to Joel Valenzuela, and I love how he's just in tune very much with like digital cash, and he's all about the just cryptocurrencies being currencies, and that's what we're gonna try to like focus on today. And he also has like personal experience of just living on little to no fiat, and so we're going to hear from him on that experience and just hear from him on all the different corners of cryptocurrency that he finds himself in. So, Joel, super appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me on.
Yeah. So, Bitcoin Cash, Monero, Dash, Lightning. Is that fair to a lot about like those four camps? Is there anyone else that you would throw in?
Not particularly. I hear a lot from the nano community, but I don't really see too much evidence of a lot of people trying to live on and spend it more than here and there. And I'm not throwing out hate here. That's just what I've seen so far. And the same sort of goes for like Litecoin and Dogecoin. And Litecoin in particular, I'm pretty sure actually gets used a decent amount. But as far as the in-person buying of things kind of deal, it's almost not really that represented as far as like, I'm going to go buy my coffee with this stuff. I really just don't see a lot in the Litecoin world. So it seems like people are trying to do that with Bitcoin. People are trying to do that with Bitcoin Cash. People are trying to do that with Dash. Some people are trying to do with Monero, but it's not supported by a lot of major payment processors in the crypto world. So that's more of like a very P2P kind of thing. Like, oh, I paid my housekeeper in this or something like that.
And why are physical payments so important to you? Why is it something you've chosen to kind of focus on and cover?
Yeah, because that is really where I'm not a payments industry expert by any stretch of the imagination, but as far as I've heard, that's where the majority of payments are the majority of purchases take place in person, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's um, whether it's actually initiating the payment in person or doing an online order and picking up in person. But there's just a lot of foot traffic, and it's it ultimately also helps solve one of those kind of trust issues, because when you have digital cash, something that's just you transferring an asset over the internet, and you can't get it back. There's no like all the things we love about it, right? There's no KYC. You don't have to have any permission. It's not reversible. All this. Um, the funny thing about that is that's a kind of a trust issue online in a lot of ways, but in person, you just see the guy. You want the good or service. It's just so much easier to kind of jump those hurdles by just doing a P2P transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for
So,
example, yeah, keep going.
well, real fast. What you just said is backed up by we had the founder of Oshi app on, which is kind of like a
Hmm.
Groupon for like Bitcoin. It's like
Yeah.
a merging of Groupon with the payment processor at the point, and he says the same thing. He's like, no, like
Hmm.
people still shop at brick and mortars. Like it's not this whole thing of like, oh, brick and mortar is dead. Like no, a ton of commerce still happens at the brick and mortar, and then that's also backed up by my own personal experience. I've had more of success talking to individual business owners, brick and mortars,
Hmm.
about BTC Pay Server than I have talking to e-commerce people. Especially, and one of the
Hmm.
reasons for that I think is also because e-commerce flows are like so hard to tweak and mess with, because like Shopify
Hmm.
doesn't want you tweaking and messing with their stuff. Like the checkout flows on like each of these stores don't want you messing with their stuff. But whereas a brick and mortar person, they could spin up a two, three, four, another payment processor like right at their counter.
Yeah. And it's at the very lowest level of a business. I think that brick and mortar is actually easier there's less infrastructure involved for a business, period, because all you have to do is show up with a table of stuff and like a
Hmm.
phone with a little whatever attachment to the Square card or whatever you do. That's all you need. Whereas online, you have to have at least a website, like a designer, make a shopping cart. There's like some stuff involved. And so at the root of commerce, every individual is a merchant. Everyone who has a good or service to sell, just you talk to the guy, they do it, whatever. That face to face kind of thing. That's, the way humans have interacted forever. And it just, the online experience is a lot more applicable to, I think, larger retailers. Like the Amazons of the world have just taken over, like the mom and pop online shop kind of thing, or like aggregators or things like that. And it's just the in person thing is, it's a big deal on this kind of thing, I think.
Tell us about how you got into crypto. We don't ask every guest this, but I think you're hearing how you got into cryptocurrency and kind of how you've seen it evolve over time. I think would be really helpful to then move into the discussion of how do you view fiat and crypto, and how do you manage your own personal finances.
Yeah, so it comes from what I would call freedom first principles, right? Where you every day you wake up, you do something. You always should have like a reason for doing things. And so my entire reason for getting into crypto comes from I believe that the world is ultimately better off if we are as free as we can be to do whatever we want as long as we don't hurt other people. And I think that not only is that moral, but that's also efficient. I think that human societies prosper because of that. And so you're looking into that, you start looking into the money we use and fiat currency. I'm sure none of your listeners are really fiat maximalists at this point, but like fiat currency has this inherent issue that a group of, I won't say anonymous people, but a group of unaccountable people basically control all our value that we put all our sweat, blood, and tears into generating over the course of a lifetime. They control the value. They can do whatever they want with it. They can just copy that value to themselves and keep it and bleed it away from everyone else. And I just can't see how anyone could be free if they have to work for money to live, because we all do, and the money is just completely controlled by someone else. So that went into, of course, well, what did people do before the fiat system? Well, there's the gold standard. And I'm like, great, I want to live on gold. And then that's not really too feasible today. I was trying with like Peter Schiff's Euro Pacific debit card and stuff. But, in the meantime, I just heard about Bitcoin and pretty quickly got sold on it. I'm like, oh, this is like gold, but it's digital. And when I saw people sending it around like, digital cash, this is before the days of Venmo and all that, it just made sense. Like, wow, this is the next step of human evolution. This is everything, kind of. Because the most important freedom is the freedom of your bodily autonomy, like the freedom to not be hit over the head or whatever it is. And then the second one is not free speech. The second most important one is free money. And then you have free speech. And so it's in that order. If someone can hit you over the head for saying the wrong thing, you don't have free speech anyway. And if they can take away your money and livelihood, that's the next thing. And then after that, you can have free speech. And once you have those big ones, we can actually, live free as a society.
And how long have you been into crypto? Are you willing to say the year?
Yeah. So I have owned and used crypto, the actual like asset in my own phone, like Bitcoin and stuff to start out with, of course, since about September of 2013. Although I found tweets and articles from myself from the like early 2013 talking about it. So as far
Yeah.
as what I've been about, it's been about 9 years, but all it's at 8.5 of like actually using the stuff. And
Hmm.
I don't mind talking about that because a lot of other people, when you say I've been in that much, they think, oh, you had like a good paying job, you bought a lot of Bitcoin and you just sat on it, and then now you're a quadrillionaire or whatever, which is absolutely not the case for me. I'm very, very middle class because at that point in time, I didn't have a lot of resources, and I've constantly been working, getting paid in cryptocurrency. I've never bought any. I've only ever gotten paid in it, and then spent it. You just use it as my day to day money. And in a lot of ways, I took, at least in the early days when it was, there wasn't a crypto industry. Like when 2015, I decided to not accept any more payments in fiat for,
Mm.
and at 2015, I had to take a lot of pay cuts to make that work, and I didn't care because I was like, you know, didn't have very many financial obligations, debt free. I was like, I can run this experiment. And now you could make bank, I guess. I mean, I'm not a developer or anything like that, but you can make bank just working on the crypto world.
When did you choose to start to really move away from fiat?
I got excited to move away from fiat starting in 2013 when I first touched Bitcoin. I just started
Mhm,
using it. I was like, this is awesome. I had about 100, I think it was like zero point 0.1 Bitcoin was my first because someone paid me in exchange for buying their pizza, and which is very fitting, of course, Bitcoin Pizza
mhm,
Day. And by the end of the year, by December, that same zero point 0.1 Bitcoin was worth about like $130. I was like, wow, this is nice. And I was spending it on things because in the local Free State community, because I moved to New Hampshire for the Free State Project, which is like a libertarian group, and they were just using Bitcoin as cash, like for things like, oh yeah, I'm selling some beers down in the basement of this club here. You know, it's like $1 in Bitcoin per or something like that, and you just beep
yeah,
scan QR code and do it. It's so that's where I got started. As of March of 2014, I was giving people to rides from the airport in exchange for Bitcoin on for some conferences. You know, it wasn't like it was just like a one-off thing, and then since then it's like someone wanted me to help them like finish their basement, and I'm like, I'll do that for Bitcoin, and then they go do it. And I was just being paid intermittently here and there. It just was in at the end of 2015 I just cut off the fiat. I was said I'm not going to accept any more fiat. And then it was about May, I think, of 2016 when I just closed my bank account.
mhm. Dude, okay, and so talk about that's what I was gonna ask about the transition between so May 2015, you said, "Hey, I'm not working for fiat anymore," and then,
Hmm.
the next year,
Or
middle of the next
December,
year,
December
December.
2015, and then
Okay,
May. So it's like a few
yep.
months.
How yeah, talk about that transition. What were your thoughts during that transition?
Well, first, it was a tough decision to make because I kind of knew it was the right place to go with my life, but it was, with a lot of risk. And so I kind of struggled over it for a while. And then when I finally
And
made
tell us
it,
about your
yes,
family too, if you're willing to. If you're willing, like
yes.
what at what point did your like more obligations like come along also? Were they already there in 2015 when you chose to stop taking fiat?
Yeah, so I had no obligations at the moment. I was in a relationship, but not one that had any financial contingencies on me. So it was a lot easier to make that full plunge experimental jump in
Mhm,
2015 than it would be for the average person. So it was basically I when I decided to stop doing fiat, I there was a couple weeks where I didn't know what I was going to do to like feed myself because I was like, all right, well, what do I do? So I looked around. I got a job writing for Cointelegraph pretty quickly, and then they paid directly in Bitcoin. So I did that, and then I did some other things like for the really OG people out there, you might remember Bitcoin Bigfoot, which is some kind of like some flyers that was used in like 2014, 2015. So like I wrote the copy for those, which is kind of crazy considering the legend status today. It's just a small thing, but things like that I did just whatever I could to get paid in it, and wherever I could, I did pay rent for intermittently. I've lived a few different places. Some places took rent directly in Bitcoin, some didn't. And then obviously I use like the gift card loophole for stuff. They had a bunch of what do they call prepaid debit cards that ran on Bitcoin, like for example, Wyrix is one of them that did not require KYC. And that was a big thing too, because I just didn't want to just be like a crypto bank person. I wanted to see if it like you could live on like actual crypto, like on cash. But they
mhm.
didn't require KYC, so I used for like $1,000 limit or something. So I used a couple of those over the years and then I
I think that
yes.
I'm gonna hit on that point for a minute. Like our
Yes.
last episode that we just released was with Britt Kelly, and I was talking with her about how yeah, our the tools have evolved over time, and it's almost like
Mhm.
it's happening so fast. To me now, it's happening so fast that it's almost hard to keep up with all of them. And so as you're like
Mhm.
building your mental stack on like how Bitcoin can continue to take more and more ground in your personal finances, it's hard to keep up with like that's honestly why I've been trying to up the amount of conversations just like what we're having right now about like no
Mhm.
physically tangibly what was happening
Mhm.
like when you were paying rent in bitcoin that had to have been just from straight from a person then like straight
Yes,
from another
P2P.
bitcoiner in the free state movement you're subletting a room in their house
Mhm.
like right like it's very much like that
Exactly.
it's not like you're not using a fancy bitcoin to ach transmitter that like lets you pay your corporate apartment building like, that
Yeah.
wasn't those tools were not there at the time.
Yes, those were not there at the time, and so this was just rough, and to answer, like, the rent question a little bit, kind of ahead of time. I've intermittently done that, sold Bitcoin or later other cryptos for cash to do that. And other times I've, when I was, been living with someone, then it's just like, all right, well, I'll just give you crypto and you pay the rent. And then there
Mhm.
was also a service which was fantastic, which it does not no longer exist for regulatory reasons, called Lamium, which was like a purse.io type thing for bills, where someone you'd upload your bill, someone would pay it, and then you'd pay them crypto for that. So you were
Mhm.
giving crypto directly to someone, but they were actually doing the bill. So I kind of did all that, and I try to use my bank as little as possible. Uh, Most of what I used it for was for cashing out Bitcoin when I needed to, and the way I did that was through a service called Wall of Coins. OGs might remember that one, but it's basically like a smoother local Bitcoins where you can sell cash for crypto. And so basically, I would send people the Bitcoin, and then they would deposit cash in my bank account as in exchange for that. And so somewhere along the way, I had like several $1,000 overdraft on the account. Just like, what the hell? I was about to pay rent. Where'd all my money go? And it turned out it was just some random person in Florida, I believe, scribbled a bunch of stuff on some bank statement and just like cleared out the account. It had nothing, and I even saw the picture of it. It had nothing to do, like, did not resemble my name, my signature, anything. And it's just mind blowing that a bank will just give someone else your money if they just doodle on a piece of paper some random stuff. So I was on the phone with the bank for a few days, got it like reversed, thankfully, but it was still terrible. And then they said, "Oh well, we have to close your account and reopen you a new one." And I just said, "Yeah, well, let me hold off on the reopening a new one." So I just got whatever else I had, paid rent out of that, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm going back. I think that's it. I'm done with banks.
Okay. So you're done with the banks, close your bank account. Did you have a
Hmm.
credit card then? Like also or like then or no, for real, like just like your inbound checking account is now done. But did you
Yeah.
have any other like a credit card or anything?
No, I
Yeah.
had no banking services at that point. All I had was Bitcoin in my wallet and
Mhm.
cash, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so it kind of went from there. In the following, few months, I got some of those like prepaid debit card things where I transfer some Bitcoin on it and then convert. And it
Yeah.
was a little clunky, but it worked. And then they ran out, and then I had to throw them away. And
What did you say to people, like, what were other people's reactions to, like, as you were I like how you use the word experiment also, like, I like how
hmm
you use the word experiment, and I like how you acknowledge the, like, clunkiness of it, like,
hmm
I appreciate that there's not, like, an overselling of, like, "Oh, man, this is
hmm
the future, like, we've reached the end state, like, this is clearly, like, Joel's, like, crushing it," or
hmm
whatever. I don't what was your would you have doubts about the experiment as you were doing it, or like would you be riding on the highs and lows of Bitcoin and crypto at the time of like, is this going to work, is it not going to work, like how was that like?
Yeah. I mean, I did, there were definite clunkinesses that, if that's even a word, that came along the way. But in the beginning, I was just too like excited about like, oh, the dude, this is awesome. I'm like living on
Mhm.
digital gold stuff that no one can touch. It was too like fun and exciting that I was able to just do this. And of course, I was kind of working in the crypto ecosystem after that. And so it's kind of like, well, I'm part of this cool thing. It made me a little bit more forgiving. But then towards the end of 2016, which, is a lot sooner than this was on anyone else's mind for the most part, I did start to have some friction based on network congestion
Mhm.
because, first off, just about everything it requires confirmations or did. And I just peer to peer, I think this was before replaced by fee anyway, but it was just I could send a Bitcoin transaction and show up. And who cares about confirmations? It'll show up later. And but some of these services started instituting confirmation requirements, and then it wasn't just like, yeah, within 10 minutes you should get it. And it was like, well, within an hour. And
Mhm.
so like I remember a few times walking around in a shopping mall trying to get a gift card from Gift for a purchase, just like, all right, still not. All right, wait for longer. Still not. Still not. And then I, one thing is about this is trying to have control over your own money. So even when I would load these crypto debit cards or whatever, I would load like they would load instantly from their custodial account. But I'd keep it on my phone or whatever on my own wallet with keys I control. Move it there. I remember one time particularly, I moved it into, I think Wirex was what I was using at the time. I moved it to the Wirex card, got in the car, and took an hour trip. And I was like, well, I'm in town. I'm going to go work from this coffee shop while I'm in this other town. And so I go and I didn't, and I had like $2 on the card on the fiat balance, and the Bitcoin didn't confirm. So I bought a coffee, and I was like at the coffee shop for like 4 or 5 hours. I still didn't get a confirmation the whole time, so I couldn't eat lunch that day because I just couldn't
Yeah.
afford it. I didn't have it. They wouldn't take the Bitcoin directly, and even so, the confirmation, and it just became like really like. And there's a couple other times where my phone ran out of battery in the meantime of waiting, and it just like I like all of a sudden I just like shut out of the financial system of my new financial system. It got really rough a few times.
Have Could you see the early signs of like the kind of digital gold and digital cash camp, like the
The
classic,
split.
like, yeah, the classic just hodl versus spending like thing? Could you see the early signs of that, and would people like give you a hard time?
No, that wasn't a thing at all. And it's one of those things where we have to realize us as a community, which a community is just a big group of people that does sometimes have a collective consciousness, but it's still, humans. The crypto community, I would call it the crypto community because it was the Bitcoin community, and now its aspects have kind of branched out, and the Bitcoin community is kind of starting to come a little bit for full circle. But it's like I'm sure we've all had that thing of like where someone pops up from your past and you're like, hey, dude, I want to be sorry. I want to apologize in case whatever. I was an asshole at that point in my life. Like, dude, I was going through a phase. And crypto and Bitcoin specifically was going through a phase during that time when everything was great. But then there was that big, the big conflict over one versus the other when
Hmm.
in fact we kind of need a tool for both, right?
Hmm.
And it ended up being, I guess, a lot of shouting past in retrospect, a lot of shouting past each other of like, I think this is important, and the other, I think this is important. They're both important, and there's different ways of addressing both. But then it turned out that way, and I'm going to actually use this for uncensorable payments bit just left Bitcoin or the main Bitcoin community and just went elsewhere. And also kind of might have weakened on the digital gold aspect of it. I don't know. But because again, mostly all focused on that. And then
Hmm.
now there's a little bit of a full circle thing where with, the advent of Lightning Network and in some actual usable apps, people are starting to like come back around to that. And it's kind of funny because some of it's a little bit disingenuous from certain individuals, right? Not going to name names, but they're out there who kind of talked a lot of smack about uncensorable payments or digital cash, and now when it's convenient, are coming back around to it. That's kind of, I've always been in favor of both, and so
Hmm.
like I didn't use Bitcoin basically at all from at the end of 2016 to I think the beginning of like 2021 or 2020, 2021. Like I just didn't touch it during that entire time because it was kind of useless to me. And then when Lightning popped in, I've like poked my head back in, run a node, like kind of just dip my toe back in. But it's the I guess the vision is still there everywhere. It's kind of like I think a lot of people, especially in the Bitcoin community, and then this happens with every single other coin. Like the Monero people are super hardcore on Monero, and a lot of Dash people are like that, and the Bitcoin Cash people are nutty too, and the SV, whatever. They're all. I think that what we forget is that Bitcoin is not like a religious experience. It's a tool developed by some very smart and people with a lot of foresight to solve an inherent freedom problem that we have with our society, with our money. And as the best tool developed at the time, that's just what you want to throw your weight behind. And then at some other point, like the vision is the vision, right? The vision, you use the best tool for it as possible. And I think a lot of times people get nostalgic. Oh, it used to all be on this. We used to do peer to peer payments on Bitcoin here. Well, it's like, can you do them today? Yeah, I can. I use this other coin or I use this other network or, well, then why are you complaining? Or then in the other side, it's just like, oh, well, I remember, used to be, all robust and like good store value with good, decentralized economics and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, is that still out there anywhere? Yeah, well, use it. I mean, it's all freedom. Financial freedom is the ultimate goal. And so I really think that as long as people are pursuing that, then the best version of that will rise to the top in fair and free market competition over time. And then, you know, I think that it's much better to find a way to achieve personal, real freedom in your life, financial freedom in your life, than to use what ends up winning out in the end, but in a way that you're just still living on fiat, kind of, or still trusting other people with your money, if that makes sense.
I think these discussions are important. I don't think there's obviously like certain like ways that you recount the history that like people will like like snipe at or whatever, right?
Mhm.
But I
Including a
think
lot of friends of mine, by the way. A lot of people on the more digital cash sides, like, well, it wasn't just at this. You see, Blockstream
yeah,
came in and
yeah,
funded by
yeah.
Mastercard or all this kind of stuff.
Th-
There'll be that
that's
too.
a great point, dude. That's a great point. That like both there's lots of ways to snipe at it and from multiple
Hmm.
angles. And so like instead of focusing on that, what I like that you're using the word full circle, and I kind of agree with
Hmm.
that. Like the way that I've been so like I I started in 2015, and
Hmm.
I think there's something that's interesting with like the 2015 to 2017 class. This is all from just my observations. I think the 2015 to 2017, they've now been stacking long enough that they're starting to ask now what. Like I keep
Hmm.
hearing these words like now what come up a lot.
Hmm.
And as I've been like trying to do this podcast and work with Choice on like elevating this conversation of Bitcoin and personal finance. Like I was a
Yeah.
personal finance nerd before I found Bitcoin. And then I found Bitcoin.
Hmm.
Like obviously it does like good things for your net worth that like make it move faster than you would like at your typical age, and it does like protect your purchasing power. Like it truly is doing that, and it's giving optionality to your life. And so I'm like I it just really dawned on me through the last, 2 years that all the tools are available. Like all the tools are available. You can
Hmm.
have your retirement account in Bitcoin. You can have a checking account in Bitcoin if you want. You can have a savings multi-sig account in Bitcoin if you want. There's like there's Bitcoin bonds, like if those work. Like there's very
Hmm.
like you all the tools are there now at a technical level for you to really stop using fiat. Like the bridges are
Yeah.
there that, and there still is clunkiness. There's like still kind of the new equivalent of what you experienced and the stories that you told. Um, but it's there. Like it's there. And so what what do you make of that? Like what do you make of do you agree that the tools are now better today? Like you can't it can be less clunky to not use fiat today.
Yeah. And that's the one thing where I would say it's 100%. It's so much easier. Like, it's to the point where in certain situations, again, terms and conditions apply, check your country for availability, all that stuff, right? It's almost like, I wouldn't say effortless, but it's almost to where you can start harshly judging people that don't try. Whereas before they're like, I know I'm a crazy person, right? I
Mhm,
know it.
mhm.
But like now it's where normal people. So let me just give you for example, in the Bitcoin world, I was like, roughing it, doing things here and there. I could, use it like a lot of places in a weird, clunky way, but I was making it go, and like I could buy lots of stuff on Amazon. That was great, and I could do a few different things. When I decided to, when it wasn't feasible anymore to run the experiment, I was like, what else do I do? While Bitcoin takes a several year vacation until coming back around to trying to become digital cash. During that vacation period, like I have bills to pay. Like I'm not a speculator. I can't buy Bitcoin, hodl, and wait. Like I'm living off the stuff. So it's like, what else do I do? And I was like looking down the list of cryptos. What else works? And the only other ones there would be, and like the top whatever, were Ethereum and Dash. And Ethereum, I'm so glad I didn't go that route, because it's, as much as I have a lot of love for the interesting stuff Ethereum is building, can you imagine trying to like spend it on coffee today? Like, I'm so glad I didn't do that. And so in the early days of like trying to use Dash instead, there were some clunkinesses, of course, because it was I guess at a similar like half of it I could do in Dash like right away. The other half I could do through like a shapeshift plugin integration or something where it's just like, all right, I can pay, but then it flips to Bitcoin somewhere back end. It might take a little longer, be a little more expensive, but it works. You can kind of like rough that. That was like the 2016, 2017, early 2017 experience. Yes, go ahead.
That's what I was gonna ask. So were you using then did Bitcoin kind of was your savings account because you were on Bitcoin, and then did it
Hmm.
act as your savings account and Dash was your checking account for like super, super rough like analogy, or would you not describe it
Um,
like that?
sort of. So I did have some Bitcoin lying around the whole time, maybe. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure I've had zero Bitcoin and having other cryptos moments of my life. I can't remember exactly, but for the most part, I didn't have that much of a savings account built up, and so I was just like swipe it all to Dash because I need it. Also, I wanted to try it out. I wanted to run the experiment, right? Be the crazy man, and so that was kind of the way that was working. I just decided to see if I could keep doing the Bitcoin trick on Dash, and it was over time there's been like diversification, but like when I was in the middle of it, it was like basically try and only Dash for like a few years. It's so during that time in the beginning it was you know doable but slightly more clunky, but the transaction part wasn't clunky, so it kind of evened out. And then yeah, so go ahead.
What's your response to like the whole volatility like question? Whether talking about Bitcoin or Dash, like what
Hmm.
how do you react to people when they say that?
Yeah, well, this is something that it's just a very real thing for normal everyday people. You if you have whatever you can't be using, right, goes up and down. So the thing is, over a long enough time period, in most cases, number does go up. If you look at like, well, what was pick a year that you buy Bitcoin or you get paid in it and you wait, it's probably higher now after a few years. It just tends to work out that way. And part of that is, of course, the dollar's crashing like nobody's business. So that's a little bit of a counterbalance too. But basically, uh, consider it like you're running a small business. Any small business owner has had variable income. You don't get a fixed paycheck every single month. I mean, maybe you as the owner do, but the business doesn't. And then sometimes you have to take personal cuts if the business is doing well or whatever. And in fact, there's some like about half of a good chunk of the restaurant industry here in New Hampshire is unprofitable for half the year.
Mm,
And then when the weather warms up, you have tons of tourists coming up. That's when they make all their money. And so it a lot of businesses are used to those kinds of cycles. And so like what do? You spend on the bills you can, you wait until you have more money and you spend it when you have it. And so there's a kind of live lean, spend
mm.
kind of cycle if you're going like hardcore and that stuff. On the other hand, today you don't have to do that at all. You can roughly time a market cycle, and then when you think you're towards the top, like throw half into a stable coin and just kind of swap it over as you need it. And then when it's kind of a low point or you start to see the market creeping up again, you swap it back over to crypto native crypto like Bitcoin. And then you kind of just deal with that. I mean, it's so easy now, the where you can just number goes up and then you sort of lock it in and then number goes up again. Although
Yeah.
like the stablecoin thing is kind of a temporary thing, I think, because I mean, how long is it going to be until major countries are actually adopting cryptocurrencies for official currency? I mean, we have like El Salvador and some other like running the rough experiment of it, but like in within 10 years it's going to be mainstream to where you won't have those kind of incredible volatilities. And I think that that fiat is going to start becoming more volatile as well. Plenty of fiat currencies are volatile. I mean, look at Lebanon, look at Argentina, look at Venezuela, which is of course the big example. People don't even talk about Zimbabwe anymore because it just died. Their fiat just died, it's gone. And so in the future I think that the volatility, like I think that in the future we might have non-fiat stable coins, and or more importantly people just use something like Bitcoin as a stable coin because that'll be where it's at.
Did anything interesting between 17 to today that we should know about, or just like how the tools evolved or anything, or fast forward to like what the tool set looks like today?
Yeah, so it's been pretty interesting because to us, the crypto ecosystem has become extremely fragmented. And I mean, now with like DeFi and stuff, everything's kind of plugging back together a little bit. But for a while, it was like a lot of people were working on this, a lot of people were working on this, and they didn't know what each other was working on. Uh, so basically, the entire like Bitcoin Cash came out in 2017, not in 2009, you guys, whatever. And then people start like there was years when it was very much not useful because all the adoption had shifted or most of it had just kind of gone away, but like Dash was infinitely more useful at that time. Now it's depending on where you're at, it's more like a 50-50. And then Lightning kind of been around for a while, but literally no one used it until like last year, I guess. And then last year, there's stuff it's starting to climb up, and now it's basically like those three are the ones you probably want to try to use. Monero's made some interesting strides lately too, so I want to put it that in, but it's not too much of a retail type thing. But basically, since then, it wasn't about towards later 2017 the sacrifice of switching to a non-Bitcoin coin was no didn't exist anymore. Now it's just like, yay, it was just like when I left off. And since then, uh, just the crypto ecosystem has grown in such a way that now it's a lot easy. It's I would say like twice to three times as easy as like the heyday of like 2016, 2017, to where I mean just for like a quick demo, right? So in the last first off, I have to give a shout out to Bitrefill because Bitrefill has been a huge pioneer on this exact issue, and in particular lately on like the lightning issue, because like when I was having issues with my lightning node, I was paying Bitrefill in Dash to like bootstrap channels to my lightning node. It was kind of funny. And then
Yep.
they're a large lightning node on the network and all this stuff, but Bitrefill makes stuff pretty easy, and that's how I pay my phone bill every month. My phone is I bought this phone from Crypto Emporium, not only in Dash but priced in Dash. It wasn't even with a fiat price tag. I use it. It's never touched fiat. I've only ever paid my top ups in using Bitrefill for like my every month. So there's this new app that came out not too long ago called Dash Direct, which is there's a company called Ionia which provisions these kinds of white label apps for different things, and Dash Direct is just one of the first or the bigger ones. But it basically takes that entire Bitrefill style experience of you can just buy exact amount gift card credit like really fast,
Yep.
and takes it to a better kind of experience. So I mean, I'll show some stuff. I don't know. So you have like a list of merchants and like significant discounts on these, right? So like Aeropostale or AMC is like 6%. So you can like spend Shiba Inu at AMC and like you eat it all up in fees, get no discount or get 6%, and then you could just click on it, enter your amount, and then there you go. And they have a map that literally tells you like where next to you. I mean, I won't scroll up a little bit so it's not too much of a location docs, but like where it says like, oh, like these are all the supporting merchants close to you. So it's like, where do I actually spend it? Right there. The coolest thing, and this isn't as of this recording, it's not a released feature yet. I got early access because I know the guy who makes this. They have this virtual MasterCard option where, and I would explain the reason this is big because it's not immediately obvious. Because people say, I got a BitPay card, I got a Crypto.com card, I got all these cards. Like, what's the difference? Well, with all those, first off, they're custodial, meaning you don't control your money. You have to, and Crypto.com just got a huge hack. They lost a ton of money. And they, from what I hear, because I'm not a customer, they paid their customers back in their own token, which is just like, that's really sketch. That's a little weird. But so you're trusting someone to hold on to your money, and you still have to you still have to look for their permission to be able to spend it. You still have to say, I got to sign up and get approved. And more importantly, it's attached to your identity, your name, your address, your banking credentials, right? Your ID. And so, or KYC as they like to call it, know your customer. But basically, your financial privacy that then, that a lot of big corporations, governments are seeking to compromise is, it's you kind of need that. And this is interesting in that don't need to actually let go of your funds at any point during this whole process, and you don't have to give up your ID. In fact, in this app here, my name and my name, first and last name, are fake name, and it's fake name at gmail.com is so it's just not attached to me at all. So um, the flow is as follows, right? Click on this thing right here, and it opens up, and all you have to do. So I have a virtual card with zero balance, right?
Hmm.
I hit add funds, and what am I going to add? Let's just say I go out to eat 25, uh, 25 bucks.
Hmm.
So I click next on that, and there's a tip option, of course, in case I'm in in case I'm in like a restaurant and I don't want to calculate. Let's add 20%. That rounds it up to 30. I hit add funds, and then proceed. And then now it opens my dash wallet. And since I don't want to dox my pin, I'm not going to kind of show
Yep.
you. But then I go, and it says paid, loading funds. And there you go. Now I have 30 on this virtual card. And so literally what I could do is I could go into a coffee shop. They say, this is how much it is. Enter it, buy it, and it just tops up the amount. Use NFC, scan the terminal, and I just pay. So I
Yeah.
literally I have Dash, and I it I have control over it at all times, and I only get the fiat amount I absolutely need for this for a matter of like maybe 5 seconds. You might have that balance for like 5 seconds if you want. Of course, you can preload it from larger amounts, and
Mhm.
then there you go. And you can also use this online for paying your bills, buying things other places doesn't accept it. Yeah,
How
all
do you
without.
do
Yeah, go ahead.
keep how do you do no, that's amazing. I love the demo. How do you
Hmm.
do ACH? Like, so if you needed to ACH to a bill, I like how Bit Refill for the cell phone. Agreed.
Hmm.
Big Bit Refill fan. I appreciate them a lot. How do you
Yeah.
do outbound ACH?
So outbound ACH, I don't know. First off, I'm not sure how much longer ACH is going to be a big part of the ecosystem and stuff. So, for example, when you're using ACH to deposit to Uphold wait makes you wait 67 days, I believe, before you. It's
Yeah.
insane. So,
All right, what I'm asking is like if you have an electricity bill where like but I guess what would you just
they
say
usually
that
do
if the
cards, right?
option was to ACH to the electricity bill or pay the fee to use the debit card, you just pay the fee to use the debit card and that's just baked into your budget.
Yeah. Well, but by the way, this thing is a feeless, doesn't have a fee involved. So it's just, you
But
still.
the
Yeah.
electricity company would
All
charge you
right.
a fee for using a debit card.
Yeah, so I think that's probably the way you have to do it in that way. Now, outside of the US, and this app is US only, but is outside of the US, the bill paying thing is so much easier. In Canada, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a few different bill pay services where you can just enter your billing information and just pay crypto, and there you go.
Mm,
Same thing in Australia, same thing in Western Europe, and same thing in Brazil. I think BitFi and there's a few other places in Brazil that do like it's basically only the U.S. is a financial dinosaur like this, and so for that you basically would have to do the card fee to pay stuff by card
mm,
in for like bills, I would suppose, and then like everything else. I mean, you basically have just like a couple of things that are a little bit clunky still. Other than that, one app basically lets you live on crypto now, which it used to be a patchwork of things. It used to be a lot of clunkiness, but now just one app and you just go through and there you go. And I have a feeling that and with I don't use Strike because Strike is a KYC service and that's just not something I do. But from what I've heard you and other people tell me, it seems like a very seamless service in a whole lot of ways, minus the, of course, custodial and KYC kind of element. And I think what we're seeing is uh, it's each element that's important here is becoming more and more streamlined. And so what Strike is doing is, I would say, pretty easy to do in today's world. There's so many services that just say, we let you do the fiat world, except you get to have it denominated in real money, not fake government money, and you also get to take it out and control it in your own
mm.
hardware wallet. And so, but other than that, you're basically banked. That's fine. That's a great improvement. I mean, how ecstatic. This is what I was trying to do with like the Peter Schiff gold debit card back in 2013 or 2012 or whatever it was. So we're already there. It's amazing that we're there. The next step, of course, is how do you do that without giving us someone else control over your money in the meantime? And then how do you do that also without giving up your private identity, which, MasterCard has a data sharing agreement with Google. So if you use a MasterCard with your name on it, they just know everything you do, your entire thing. How do you do that privately now? And so
Yeah.
this one app lets you do a lot of that. It's basically like it's a glimpse into the future. And by the future, I mean the next 5 years, not that far. But it's a glimpse into the future today. But I would really assume that within 5 years, no one's gonna like care that I'm like, oh, hey, I'm unbanked, I live on crypto, no KYC service. They're like, so like it's just now people are like, that's weird and hardcore. But in 5 years, I think 5 to 10, it's definitely gonna be pretty commonplace.
Totally. I roughly agree with that. Like, I roughly agree with that. That the speed is very fast. Like, we're already
Hmm.
seeing, and this, I've said this on Space. I've said this in this show a little bit. Just the speed at which the services are already available to use Bitcoin as your base money,
Hmm.
like, are like the fact that we're already there in 2022. I can't see how that speed would slow down or somehow get stalled. Like, software is
Yeah.
finding a way, and the humans, I think there is a, like, there is a self motivate, like, there's very a lot of self motivating reasons to, like,
Hmm.
use the services also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that I don't think it's like a worry of mine, because where there's a demand, there will be a supply created to meet that demand, because people can make money. Uh, I think that there might be a time where a lot of people are living on crypto, like on Bitcoin, but will still be in the old financial system, kind of, because PayPal, Cash App, Bank of America, I think, or one of those big banks are all like doing Bitcoin now. They're all doing different cryptos, and so people are just going to be using Venmo or whatever to send their Dogecoin to buy for their cheesesteak or whatever they're buying, and they're still in the exact same banking system, but not fiat, which again is a huge improvement. But what's the impetus to get out of that? That's the thing
Mm,
that I hope there's always a transition to, because some of these places might not let you pay in crypto ever directly. They might just be like, it has to be in one of our closed loop or with one of our partners. And it's like, well,
for
pay
sure.
with Coinbase, pay with whatever else. And that might slow things down for some people. But as long as like I'm able to, the I hate to give, after dumping on Ethereum for like their horrendous unusable fees and all that stuff, I think the Ethereum and other world might be making sure that never fully happens, though, because with the NFT boom, you have like a 12-year-old in the UK who made like 500 grand off of NFTs. He can't have a bank account because he's a freaking kid. Well, what is he going to do? Like, there's people like that need access to some sort of a financial service. And just the fact the KYC is not an option. I mean, there's a friend of mine who also lives unbanked off of, mostly Dash, but other cryptos as well. And unlike me, he isn't doing it as an experiment. He doesn't exist. He doesn't have a birth certificate. His parents didn't give him. They didn't want him on the grid. And so he's been living off the grid, and because that's his only choice. He can't get a bank account, and so he's just been using crypto. And those people will never be able to use something like Strike. But those kinds
Mm,
of people not only can use other crypto solutions to pay, in especially all the peer-to-peer stuff, but they're also already on DeFi making incredible, I would say, incredible yields and stuff, doing the same things that are available to the fiat world, where it's just like, oh, I'm going to buy stock in this, or oh, I'm going to lend out to this, or all this other stuff. They're doing it right now without KYC and probably getting a hell of a lot richer than people who are, in the old world. So once you could do that, like that's the thing about like the KYC element, which I always make it as a big thing, like no KYC or no custody, whatever. Those things, they're not necessarily bad in their own self, but the requirement is a regulation. Anyone who knows the first thing about free market economics knows that regulations are bad for economic growth. More specifically, every rule you have to comply with, every extra step is an actual tangible financial cost. Like it costs you. Just like every extra button you have to press on your app before you give the user exactly what they want, every extra place their eye has to go is a percentage chance that they're not going to do the thing at all. It's just like
mm.
you look outside, oh, it's cold today, I'm not going to go out today. It's like, I'm not going to put on pants today. It's the same thing. And so KYC is the exact same thing. They have to get verified, or just a pause of knowing that like the government and institutions and credit scores and all that is just on them as soon as they enter this, just reduces their ability to do this. So there will always be a distinct market demand for just actual financial freedom.
Yeah. I like how one more question, then I'm going to ask
Yeah,
you our final question we ask everyone, and then we'll conclude.
fantastic.
I like how you acknowledge that like Bitcoin replacing fiat and still within the banking system is still an improvement. I appreciate that because
Yeah.
I think sometimes in the KYC versus non KYC discussion and in sort of the like outer ends of the crypto ethos discussions, it's not acknowledged, and I think that's a logical breakdown. I think it's good to
Hmm.
talk about the spectrum, and I think it's good to talk about progress. Um,
Hmm.
I just think that's cool because I agree with that a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's true, because a lot of times, again, with friction, if it's like KYC or no KYC, sometimes KYC crypto is just easier for them, to the point where if they had to do the other way, they'd just be in fiat, and
for
not,
sure.
no one wins.
Do you have any ideas on other things that can happen to continue to broaden, elevate the overall discussion in that area?
Of just digital cash in general.
Yeah, of just and of the like multiple communities kind of like understanding the crossovers better.
So I honestly believe, talking about the financial freedom aspect is super important, and remembering that cryptos are tools for that. And that's just the big thing of like, can anyone manipulate the money that you have? Can anyone take it from you, your personal balance? And then do you need anyone's permission to spend it? And those three things, and it just should be like a, almost like a whiteboard where you're crossing off one as you like achieve them. That's just everyone's personal mission, everyone's mission to achieve those things. And so, like, for example, people using something like Strike should consider that as a, you cross the one off for a lot of people.
Yeah, so tell us where we can find you and talk about your podcast.
Yeah, so I run a channel called Digital Cash Network. Again, very easy to remember for everyone. People are into that subject. On YouTube, on Odyssey, which is the library blockchain based alternative. On just podcasts, on TikTok, on Instagram for the shorter ones, on like everywhere. That's the main way you could follow the stuff I put out. Me personally, I'm at the Desert Links, as in desert is in warm place, links is in kitty cat. The Desert Links on Twitter and just pretty much everywhere else. So that's me personally, and then that's in my show's Digital Cash Network.
Loved it. Great combo today.
Hey all, this is Brian. You can reach me on Twitter at Brain Harrington. Shoot me a DM with any feedback from today's episode. This has been a Choice App production. Bitcoin is becoming centric to personal finance, and we want to help you learn how to better engage with Bitcoin financial services. None of this is financial advice and is for education and entertainment